Hi, this is Bill Sutton.
And Jason Sutton.
And welcome to another episode of Sutton Impact Family Style.
We're going to start out with our Sport Marketing Minute, and I'll let you handle that one.
Okay, my Sport Marketing Minute today is a tribute to Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones just won the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Sport Business Journal. And when I think about people that have really impacted the business of sports, Jerry Jones got to be at the top of the list. He took a venue, which is Jerry's World, or now AT&T Stadium, and made it an epicenter for sport, where he has multiple events, basketball tournaments, everything else. He's taken a stadium and made it more than a stadium. He came up with the idea about people coming to the stadium and watching the game on TV outside, which was pretty innovative. He does a lot of the marketing for Papa John's, and the latest thing is his new training facility in Frisco called the Star, which I think is going to be, again, another trendsetter. And if you want to look outside of just what he's done in Dallas, he has definitely been the influencer for the new stadium in LA and the new stadium in Las Vegas. His consulting group, Legends, is going to probably be involved in both of those things. He has really driven business above and beyond expectations in everything he's ever done. So my Sport Minute is a tribute to Jerry Jones and his innovation and his way of generating revenue and creating additional revenue streams, probably better than anybody that I've seen.
And I think over the course of my lifetime, there's obviously guys like Cuban now, but he's the first owner that I knew outside of the Pittsburgh organizations, because I lived in Pittsburgh, he's the first owner I knew anything about.
Yeah, and he wants to win. Some of the things that aren't as great about him is he's kind of functions as his own general manager, and that hasn't worked out. But I'll give him props if he was the one that made the Dak Prescott trade, our draft pick.
Right.
So we'll see. But definite innovator, definite pushing the envelope, definitely forcing the NFL to look at revenue in a different way. He's kind of forced people to come along in a lot of ways. And if they didn't want to come, he dragged them along. So he's definitely changed sport business.
Definitely.
A lot of respect for him.
And I've seen him on TV, and he's actually, he's very charming, he's very funny. I've seen him in a sitcom. He was on The League last year.
Well, it's my goal to get him at my USF Fox Sports Florida Speaker Series, so we'll see if I'm able to get him this year.
That would be great. And this week is also a big week because, according to ESPN, this is the most star-studded, based on number of all-stars and where they are in their careers, NBA Finals in history.
Yeah.
With LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love. And again, as much as I wanted to see basketball continue and maybe the Celtics show a little more signs of life, as we said a few weeks ago, I'm really excited that, at least as far as we know, there's no major injuries going into this finals. As of game one, obviously it's a long season, people are dinged, but we're going to have two teams at full strength, ready to go for their rematch, or third match.
Yeah, third consecutive match.
Now, obviously Vegas has favored the Warriors, who you could argue if, Draymond Green doesn't get hurt last year, they probably don't go down.
Mm-hmm.
Although they had games with Draymond after that when they were still up.
Okay, and they've added Kevin Garnett.
And they've added Kevin Durant.
And
they've only lost Harrison Barnes, which has got to be a huge...
Yeah. I think it's going to be the best series that I've seen. But that said, I don't know if I could pick against LeBron, because his drive and his determination is Jordan-esque. It reminds me of Jordan, and sometimes you see who Jordan was playing with in the finals, and you couldn't believe that his team won. And I just think LeBron has that ability to will his teammates to play at a higher level. And so I'm going to go with the Cavaliers.
I'm actually thinking the exact opposite.
Okay.
As much as I like LeBron, not only am I picking the Warriors, I think I'm picking the Warriors in 5.
Okay.
I think the Warriors are they're angry from last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're far more talented. Obviously, both of our predictions, I'm sure, are based on everybody staying healthy.
Yeah, for sure.
And not some sort of bizarre, freakish, whether it be an injury or a suspension or some sort of crazy outside influence on the game. But I feel like the team's at full strength. I feel like Durant has that killer instinct.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Steph quietly has it a lot more than he gets credit for. Yep. I think as he's a short little, smiley guy, I think people sort of, they don't give him that respect of being sort of a killer when he clearly is. Draymond and Klay Thompson, again, I just think they got him. I mean, obviously, I think that I think the Cavs will win one, but I think the Warriors are just chomping at the bit, and I wonder if the Cavs are the same way.
Well, I'm counting on Zaza to step on somebody's foot, and again for the Cavaliers to make Curry work hard and probably bounce him around physically like they did last time.
Without a doubt.
So, and I just think LeBron and Kevin Love's playing really well. Kyrie's playing his best I've seen him play. I don't know. I got to go with Cavs this year.
I will say this because I disparaged Kevin Love a little bit. I think I compared him to a slightly better Ryan Anderson, and he's made me eat my words this playoff series. He has played far greater than anything else. Like,
he's really stepped it up.
He stepped it up on rebounding, on defense. He's really looked just a lot better. And I mean, again, I do respect that. Like, I read another article. He was talking about it. I brought up Tom Brady, but Kevin Love has done the same thing. Like, he realized his physical body, when you look at him when the way he came in the NBA, wasn't working. And he talks about how he sacrifices all the time. Like, people make fun of the way he eats, but he's like, I'm a very picky. He's like, I eat very set meals because this is what I need to do to maintain my level of physicality. And you can tell not everybody in the NBA does that, and you got to respect it whenever you see it.
Yeah, you do.
But like I said, even then, I think this Warriors team is just going to come out on fire.
I just think it's going to be a great series. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch this one.
Yes, this one I'll watch. Because while I have not watched maybe more than 3 NBA games, and it's just been sporadically in the back, I have watched every Penguins game this playoff. And obviously I'm biased as a Penguins fan. I'm currently wearing Penguin shorts along with my Steelers shirt. So I'm clearly a Pittsburgh person. But, the Penguins have a chance to do something that no team has done in 20 years, which is win back-to-back finals. Mm-hmm. And obviously I cannot pick against the Penguins. Despite the fact that they are a little bit banged up, and that Nashville, is a really nice story. Mm-hmm. Their fans have really embraced that team. Like, it's a fun arena to go to. It reminds me of like a soccer arena. I mean, a soccer stadium. The way they really get into it, and they're singing songs, and they're excited.
Yeah.
But I think I talked to you a little bit beforehand. We were talking about the NHL. Like, obviously, with Gretzky, it sort of Lemieux, it sort of popped up, and it looked like it was going to be fighting to be in that top 3 major sports, and it sort of settled back down. And we have, a lot of incredible talent spread out around. But my question to you earlier was basically, why isn't hockey more popular?
And I told you, I think when we talked about it, I said that I look at hockey much the way I looked at soccer, in that it took soccer a long, long, long time to catch on in the U.S. And while kids played soccer, their parents had never played soccer. Now we're at the point where the parents that have the kids had also played soccer. So the critical mass is there for soccer. I don't think the critical mass is there for hockey. I don't know if it'll ever be there for hockey.
Probably not in this country.
Probably not in this country. But I do think that, one thing I will say is, having studied fans for 30 years, there's not a group of fans more passionate, more committed to the sport, that consume more of the sport than hockey fans. Take the NFL out of it because it's a short number of games.
Right.
But for multiple games, for a 40-plus game sport, so 80 games, they consume it better than anybody else. I mean, they really love it. They're passionate about it. It's just hard to get somebody that's never played the game or seen it up close to start following it. And I think if they can figure that out, I think it could have a growth spurt.
And I'm sure some of that has to do with the fact that they just aren't a lot of... I mean, most of the stars are Canadian and European stars.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part. I know there's, not to take anything away from the great American players there are, but the majority of great players in the league are not from this country. So I'm not sure how much that...
And I will tell you, my experiences with the Lightning, I've never worked with a group of athletes that I respect more and enjoy more than hockey players. Hockey players have no ego, and they are very giving to the fans and just willing to do whatever it takes. They're just great human beings. I really enjoy hockey players. But I got to go with you. I got to go with Penguins. I think there's something to be said for being there before.
Right.
And I think the first time you're going to play in the Stanley Cup Finals, all of a sudden that throat might get a little tighter. Your butt might pucker a little bit. But it's different.
And the Penguins core, this is their 3rd Stanley Cup together.
Yeah.
I mean, they've won, but they're...
They've done it. They've been there. So I got to give them the edge.
Now, shifting to slightly... I guess the article was about the sad state of the Pirates baseball team. And they mentioned this season in particular.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting season.
It started off, Sterling Marte suspended for 80 games. He was arguably going to be their best player. Mm-hmm. Suspended due to drugs. Kang, who again was a huge contributor to them last year. Mm-hmm. He can't get into the country due to passport and DUI.
He probably won't be there this year, which would bring into doubt the future.
Another offensive player who, I love Andrew McCutchen. Mm-hmm. He made Pirate baseball exciting again when I had sort of moved away from Pirate baseball. I followed it peripherally, but he brought me back to paying attention to Pirate baseball. And, everyone in Pittsburgh, and I think around baseball, probably was hoping that last year was an anomaly. There was just, it's this one bad, he was a freak year. Maybe he was a little more dinged up than people realized. And this year he was going to bounce back. Probably not be MVP McCutchen based on his age, but bounce back closer to what he was. He's only 30, right? So he still should be in his prime. But he has obviously not had a great season. James Talion, who looked like a nice young stud pitcher. Mm-hmm. Granted, he just had a great start in the minors, but he got diagnosed with cancer, and he's off the Major League Baseball team. Which brings us to our new segment of Ask a GM. So now you're the Pirates. It looked like, this was going to be this group of people was going to be your big push to be another playoff team one more year. But now you're looking at a team that, like you said, a lot of people's future is up in the air. A lot of the guys you counted on to be your rocks, your bedrocks are sort of done. Mm-hmm. You have a few trade assets right now. You got Josh Harrison. You have Garrett Cole, who the Pirates do have control over for 2 more years, but he's a very valued commodity as a pitcher.
Right.
And, you had some guys in the minors that you thought were probably going to be ready right now that probably aren't going to be ready for another year or two, mm-hmm. including Glasnow and maybe Austin Meadows. Mm-hmm. Bell is sort of a work in progress. So it's like if you're the Pirates GM, not that you're blowing it up per se, but would you trade these pieces away and hope to come back in another? Because you're a small market team. You're not going to be able to go sign big free agents. Do you try to ride this bad wave out? Or do you sort of throw those chips in there, see what you can get, and hopefully come back 2 or 3 years and make another run?
That's a good question. I mean, what I've seen, my optimism this year has been Adam Frazier. And I like Tyon the way he's pitched, and hopefully in another month he's back. I like Tyon. Ivan Nova has done really, really well. Pitched well. Polanco looks like he's starting to come back now. Marte, I don't expect much for this year. I don't see him competing this year. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of Cole, or I've seen enough of Cole that I'm not convinced he's all that. If I get a good offer for Cole, that gave me some depth that could come along. I need one player that could play now and a couple players that were close.
Okay.
But I could see moving Cole. I could move Josh Harrison. I like him, but he's also up there.
Tony Watson's probably gone regardless.
Tony Watson's gone, and I like Felipe Rivera better than Watson anyhow. I'm the confidence of Watson. So I think I would make some moves to enable me to be better for the... I'd be better in the 18 season, but I'd be shooting for the 19 season with Austin Meadows and other players there. So,
and with our former favorite dreadlocked player who cut his hair and seemingly got worse since he's cut his hair, and Andrew McCutchen, is this a just take what you can get and move on?
I think you keep playing him and see if he improves enough to improve his trade value. I think his trade value is very good right now.
Right.
But he's meant a lot to the city, meant a lot to the franchise. I think it's one of those things that it's one of those good things, bad things trades. It's not going to make a lot of people happy, and it's going to upset a lot of people as well.
No, because he's been great in Pittsburgh. He's really embraced that city.
When you get a player that obviously wants to be there,
and he wants to be there, I think he's. I mean, I know he. I mean, the contract he signed is a fairly club friendly term.
Fan friendly, yeah, for sure.
I'm sure he could have held out and gone out and got better money somewhere else, but like you said, he wanted to be in Pittsburgh. He wanted to build this team up, and for a long time, I mean. He had a 4-year stand where he was, top 5 in the MVP race every single year.
Yeah.
And he was arguably...
And you're hoping, and they seem isolated on the inside fastball. And he hit one the other night for a home run. But it said when he was in his prime, he was hitting that inside fastball at over 300. Now he's hitting it at 167. So they're pointing to that. It's something in his mechanics, something in his swing. So if he can fix it, great. But I, for one, would not like to see Kutch get traded. But that's just me. I don't know if it's best. That's a fan talking. It's not a general manager talking.
Right. Or even what's best for Kutchen. I mean, you never know, like, the old change of scenery, new coaches, new teammates.
Only pointed out last night that maybe that's would be good for him to get a change of scenery and get some value back in return. So it's going to be interesting next couple months. They've not played well. Glasnow pitched last night. He was disappointing. The whole team was disappointing last night. I don't know.
But moving on to a happier baseball story. I saw this article. I think it was an article. I basically saw it on Twitter. And the premise is that you pick a starting lineup plus a few pitchers in baseball. But the premise is that you're picking only players that you've seen play. So I wasn't around for Jackie Robinson or Babe Ruth, so I wouldn't pick those guys. But it's not picking the best players you've seen your entire life. You're picking your favorite player at each position.
Okay.
So I thought, it'd be kind of fun just to do that. So I'll start out with my catcher.
Okay.
And I went with former Pittsburgh Pirate Jason Kendall.
Okay.
I mean, Kendall is almost a 300 career hitter, and I feel like probably a little bit undervalued, like, historically overall. I think he was a lot better than he ever got credit for. He also had the second most stolen bases of a catcher in the history of baseball. And he obviously, I think a lot of people know him from that horrific injury where his ankle just went out running to first base. But, I mean, there is some bias because I got to see him a lot more because he was a Pirate player.
Yep.
We share the same first name, which, again, growing up always makes you enjoy a player a little bit more. But he was just he was a fiery player. He was sort of the heart of that team, like one of the emotional leaders, and he was just fun to watch.
All right. I'll count my catcher, Carlton Fisk. 1975 Red Sox World Series. Hits the home run, waves it fair. Always loved Carlton Fisk, the way he played the game, with a lot of energy, a lot of intensity. I saw him play in person a couple times, but it was mostly I was a TV fan, but I just liked him and liked the way he played the game.
Okay. Moving over to the first base, I'm with John Kruk.
Ooh.
I've always enjoyed I've had a special place in my heart for the Jerome Bettis, the Charles Barkley.
The round people. I've always been fascinated by a round person can excel in sports. And John Kruk was one of those. I mean, he's been on TV. He's a very jovial, very fun guy. Mm-hmm. He seemed like he loved playing baseball and really enjoyed it. Yeah.
I mean, you had those bizarre stories about him eating hot dogs in the dugout in between innings, which, most athletes would just be in shock over. But
or deny.
But for a long time, he was one of the best hitters in baseball. And again, I just feel like he was one of those guys, like when you watched him, and again, that's on the surface, which is always tough to say. It looked like he loved playing the game more than anybody else because, you don't want to judge the way somebody looks facially. Just because he smiled more doesn't mean he enjoyed playing more, but that was this vibe that I got from him. Sure. He was just happy to be there, loved playing baseball, and I just enjoyed watching him play.
All right, my first baseman, Willie Stargell. Pop Stargell. Sportsman of the Year in 1979, world champion, leader of the Pirates. We are family. Great jovial guy, but put the fear of God in you when he's standing in the batter's box doing that windmill batting swing. So I've always loved Pops, and he is absolutely. This was the easiest one for me. It's the first one I wrote down. We talked about this. First base.
By the way, first base, Willie Stargell.
First one.
That easy.
I
would say second base was maybe my most difficult position to pick. Not because of options, but almost lack of options. That doesn't mean that I like this next player that I'm about to name any less. But I went with another Pirate and a hometown kid, Neil Walker.
Ooh, good call.
He's currently playing for the Mets, and he just hit 2 home runs against the Pirates the other night. And he was one of those, going back to our McCutcheon talk, McCutcheon grew up in the Pirate organization. Mm-hmm. His dad was friends with Roberto Clemente. He was, a hometown kid, so he's one of those people that, you didn't want to see traded when he got traded.
Right.
It looks like maybe it was the best thing for him because he's on a team that, he can do a little bit more with. And the Pirates had people coming up like Alex Frazier. Mm-hmm. So he was on it, he was over 30, but I've always just enjoyed watching Neil Walker play. I think he's obviously never going to be a Hall of Fame player, but he was a great Pirate. And again, he was great for the city of Pittsburgh. Like, he really embraced the city. And granted, he was from there, which probably puts a little bit, but I just really liked him.
I was hoping he was going to get the David Freese treatment that David Freese gets in St. Louis when he goes back. And he got it a little bit on Friday night, but he didn't get anything last night. I was a little disappointed.
Yeah.
I thought they should give him some love. My second baseman, Pirate Bill Mazeroski. Greatest second baseman of all time. Hit the home run to win the Pirates World Championship in 1960. Nobody made the pivot on a double play better than Bill Mazeroski. my father's favorite player, so that's interesting as well. But I've always loved Maz. I went to fantasy camp, met Maz, and so I have a lot of respect for him. But Maz is my guy at second base.
Yes. I went to college in Massachusetts, and I bartended, which meant I ended up watching a lot of Red Sox baseball, and therefore a lot of Yankees baseball. So my pick for shortstop is actually just Derek Jeter.
Okay.
They talk about, the clutch gene.
Yeah.
And that's a guy that clearly had the clutch gene. Mm-hmm. I felt like, even when he sort of had, because like I said, I ended up watching a lot of Yankee Red Sox baseball over the 7 years that I spent bartending in Massachusetts. And, he came through whenever it mattered. Like, you knew if it was a close game and he was at the plate, your eyes went to the TV.
Yeah.
Because he was on base. And then, oddly, this probably isn't the best reason to enjoy him, but the fact that he would give his women friends gift baskets as they left his house. It's just, there's something about
like
that.
A classy guy.
It's really bizarre. But I don't know how you describe that, but again,
you described it.
On the field, he was just, like I said, I think, people, the sabermetrics people have obviously didn't have some of the range and everything else, but he had that indescribable quality of, like, when the Yankees needed a big play during his career, he would come through with a big play consistently.
All right, my shortstop won't be on anybody else's team. Nobody else will pick my shortstop. But I picked Jack Wilson, who was a shortstop for the Pirates in their most dreadful times. And he was really the only reason I watched for those 10 years. But he was a human highlight film, and he was always on SportsCenter making phenomenal plays. Played the game hard. Loved Jack Wilson. I love the style of the play. I love the hustle. I love the star, the glove. Great guy. My guy. Shortstop.
Nice. Third base for me is a little bit bizarre. He's obviously, I think, he has almost 500 career home runs. He was a great player in real life, in Scott Rowland. Mm-hmm. But honestly, the reason he came to mind is that for whatever reason, I would always trade for him on my video game team. Yeah. I know that's a bizarre reason to really like someone, but he was my most clutch player in MLB The Show in those sort of games. Like, whenever he was there, like whatever baseball game I was playing, I always traded for Scott Rowland, and, that's why I went with Scott Rowland.
Good. I picked Brooks Robinson, Baltimore Orioles, Hall of Famer. Again, a great glove guy, but a great clutch guy. And I saw him play against the Pirates in a couple World Series, and I always had to admire the skill set, but what a great player. I admire somebody that I admire the glove guys. I really do, and he's one of the best ever.
Very nice. So as we move to the outfield, I have another glove guy for sure. A glove guy, an arm guy,
okay,
a hit guy, and personality plus, Ichiro. I just found him, and a longevity guy. Mm-hmm. He put up amazing stats in America.
Yes, he did.
And when you combine that with Japanese stats, he would be the all-time hit king. Mm-hmm. He had that sort of, he was almost swinging and running to first simultaneously somehow. He had a lot of infield hits, which doesn't seem exciting, but he somehow made those little hits exciting. He was great on the base path, and he had an absolute cannon of an arm. He was just,
he still has a good arm.
He still has a good arm. Just fun to watch, and I just always enjoyed him.
All right, I'm going to start with my left fielder, Carl Yastrzemski from the Red Sox. I used to love watching Carl Yastrzemski play the wall, and I liked his exaggerated batting stance. But watching him play the wall in Fenway was like I was watching Picasso paint. I've never seen anybody play it better. In fact, I went one time to a game, and when I went to Texas to see the Red Sox play, and I had tickets in left field, and Yaz was playing at first base. I switched my tickets so I could see Yaz close up playing first base. One of those guys I've always really loved watched playing.
Yes.
And the last Triple Crown winner.
I just sort of went generic outfield because I figured we can move my guys around. I figure Ichiro can play anywhere. Again, as I said, the people I watched a lot, I got to go with Manny Ramirez. He was, I like characters quite a bit. I like guys that have, that sort of odd personalities, and he had one.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, besides being, as people say, arguably one of the greatest right-hand hitters of all time, and again, a guy that, and I throw out all the accusations about, whatever substances people were taking during the home run, pretty much from like 90 to 2000, whatever. I don't know who did, who didn't, who tested for whatever, who wasn't. But he was fun to watch. Like
Manny being Manny.
Manny being Manny. And whether it was him, seemingly being asleep during a fly ball or coming through an home run the very next at bat just to make up for his goofy play. But he had that weird personality. He's fun to watch.
Okay, I agree. My center fielder, Mike Trout, my only current day player on my roster. And I characterize Mike Trout as the greatest player people have never seen because he plays for the Angels. Most of his games are when people on the East Coast are in bed. So unless you're on the West Coast, and you can't see this guy day in, day out to really appreciate him. Drove up to see him last couple years ago in Anaheim. Was very impressed. He reminds me of a cross between Mickey Mantle and Bo Jackson. His power and his size. I mean, if he was a running back in football, I can't even imagine. He's really fast. Great glove, great power. Absolutely my favorite player in today's game.
And sadly, again, like you said, I mean, I feel like he just, as great as he is, he should be more well known.
Yeah.
And he's just not. And
he plays on a mediocre team, and he's on the West Coast.
And I don't know if this is on him or on Major League Baseball, but I also have no idea what his personality is.
Yeah, he's very, very low key.
Right. And this is sort of a double. I ended up picking Bryce Harper over the other guy. Okay. He's one of my current players.
Okay.
Again, he's got a very big personality.
Mm-hmm.
Last year was a down year for him, but he's been one of the most exciting young players in baseball.
Yep. He
plays hard. He brings it every night. And I ended up choosing him over a guy that at one point was my favorite baseball player growing up in Pittsburgh, and that would be Barry Bonds. And I had to leave Barry Bonds off because of everything that happened after Pittsburgh.
Yep.
When he was, skinny Barry Bonds winning MVPs for the Pirates, and the Pirates were competing with Draybeck and Bonilla and Bonds and Van Slyke, I loved Barry Bonds. He was a joy to watch. He seemed like he was a fun guy. And then, obviously he, grew in size due to, obviously, illegal things. Without question,
he swelled,
including his giant head. And he seemed to be kind of a not great person. He seemed like his teammates didn't like him. He seemed like he was a very different guy that played for the Pirates.
Very much so.
And his end of his career soured him enough that I couldn't put him on my team. But I felt like I had to at least give him some sort of a mention, if you will.
Okay. And my last thought from my right fielder is the great one, Roberto Clemente. The greatest baseball player I've ever seen. I saw him play numerous times. It was the only, again, you go to Pirate game at Forbes Field, go sit in right field and watch Clemente. That's what you watch. Greatest arm I've ever seen. 1971 World Series was his coming out party. Just absolutely my favorite player of all time.
And he obviously died doing something and, being selfless on that plane on Christmas Eve, going to bring food to his home nation, where he just a great guy. So now we move into our pitchers, and I think we decided 2 starters and a reliever.
Yep.
So my first reliever is another sort of eccentric Red Sox, and that's Pedro Martinez.
Okay.
He was, I would say, having to watch Red Sox baseball, like I said, bartending for 4 consecutive years in a Red Sox bar, was never exactly my favorite thing. I was always hoping there was something else on most nights.
But it was always on.
No matter, and
everybody wanted to watch it in Massachusetts.
Everyone. Every TV in the bar had to be on the Red Sox. And Pedro was one of those guys that when he pitched, I wanted to watch. Because, you never know what you were going to, you never know how great the performance was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in big games, typically, I know, you can argue the Yankees got to him a couple of times here and there, but that was a long rivalry. But he was a little guy that could just hurl it. And again, he was must-see TV as a pitcher.
Yeah, he was absolutely. And he was a great pitcher.
Fantastic pitcher.
All right, my first pitcher is Nolan Ryan. Again, I love watching Nolan. I love a strikeout pitcher. I love watching Nolan Ryan pitch. I love the 100 miles an hour. I love the line where he'd have 1 hit, 8 walks, 3 hit batsmen, and still win the game. Just crazy line. Over 5,000 strikeouts. Most strikeouts. Nobody over catch him in strikeouts. And I loved him so much that your brother Dan would have been Nolan Ryan Sutton if your mother would have went along with it. Your mother offered me Ryan Nolan Sutton, which I rejected. So we compromised on Dan, but it would have been Nolan Ryan Sutton.
Very nice. That would have been cool.
Yeah, it would have been. Tell your mother that.
My second pitcher, much like you, was a strikeout guy. And unlike Pedro Martinez, he was a giant, and that's Randy Johnson. Mm-hmm. He struck out almost 5,000. He killed a live bird.
Yeah.
He blew a bird
on YouTube.
Yeah, everybody's probably seen that clip. But he was this giant 6'8" left-handed that could just fire it. And I know, I mentioned John Kruk earlier, and he said he was the one guy he was terrified of in the batter's box because he had this just big, long wind-up, and he just threw so hard. And again, in the World Series, he came through for Arizona. He and Schilling double-teamed that, and he's fun to watch.
So you got him and two guys on the all-mullet team, Kruk and Randy Johnson.
Yeah.
Nice. My other pitcher is Doug Drabek, Pirates in the early 90s. What I loved about Drabek is he was more than a pitcher. He was a hitter. He stole bases. He was a fielder. He was aggressive. He was a Cy Young winner, Pirates' only second Cy Young winner, and just loved the way he played the game. Just really respected that.
Yeah.
Very enjoyable for me.
I feel like this is somewhat of a cop-out with the last one because I went with the greatest reliever of all time, but again, I watched him probably play more than any other reliever, and that's Mariano Rivera.
Yep.
And again, it's
hard to argue.
I mean, if it was a one, you had a lead going into the ninth, it was basically automatic. Now I know, in the last couple of years of that Red Sox series, he got hit a couple of times, but I mean, you were going against Ramirez, Ortiz, all those guys.
No question.
But he was just so dominant with his two pitches, or even his one pitch, whatever you want to call it. But again, he just would go in and just shut people down, everything to close. You never. We talk about our lack of faith in Tony Watson and some of the Pirates closers in the past. With Mariano Rivera, if he got hit, it was a shock. Yeah. It was what? Let alone if he gave up a run. You just assumed it was that's ninth inning, the Yankees are leading, the game's over. And that's just a level of dominance you just can't,
No, and a good guy, too. My relief pitcher, Elroy Face, who was for the Pirates in 1959, went 18-1 as a reliever. They didn't have saves. They didn't get credits for saves, and he pitched multiple innings. He had a forkball, but it was the first time. It was before relievers really came into prominence. He was the first reliever that everybody knew and everybody feared, and he was just whenever he came into a game, I was excited, and it always made me feel good that the Pirates were in a good place.
Yes.
And I met him in fantasy camp too. Really good guy.
And for my DH, and again, I want to make sure that despite my list, I in no way support any New England team. But I had to go with Big Papi.
Have to.
He's just, again, he's a joy to watch, and he's got that clutch gene. When he's up and they needed a big hit, I mean, he's the reason they won a couple of those World Series. And he is obviously, much like the Edgar Martinez of the world, he is a true DH. I know we didn't have any sort of pick. We just were going to pick an extra player to throw in as a DH, but he obviously was not great in the field, even at first. But he was just fun to watch. He's fun to listen to talk.
He is a presence.
He's a presence. And then obviously, with all the things that happened in Boston and the way they've embraced him and the way he embraced that city and even in the forms of tragedies, he's always sort of been there for them. And I think that probably plays a part in my love of him as well.
And my DH was never a DH, but on my team he'd be a DH. It's Willie McCovey. Played for the Giants. Another huge guy like Willie Stargell. And had another menacing presence, big left-handed guy, hitter. And whenever he was playing against the Pirates, I was always in fear. I'd fear him more than Mays. Because McCovey could just jack it out anytime. So this was fun, Jace. We should do this for another sport.
I think we're planning on doing it for another sport. We'll have to figure out the numbers as far as everything else goes. And before we get out of here with our food segment, let's do one more sort of weird one, because I know it was on Reddit and Twitter this week. And obviously, as LeBron goes to his 7th consecutive finals and looks to win back-to-back for a second time, the inevitable comparisons of Jordan. Mm-hmm. And somebody pointed out that if you say, is he as good as Jordan, that's already saying that he's not as good as Jordan.
Right.
But somebody put out this sort of bizarre thing on Twitter, which was, would 5 LeBrons beat 5 Jordans in a regulation basketball game? And obviously, LeBron has the size advantage.
Yeah.
But Jordan is Jordan, and Jordan was one of the best defenders of all time. I mean, I think the argument would pretty much go that, all of LeBrons would just continually keep passing the ball in the hopes that they were setting up the other LeBron for a better shot than this LeBron would get. Mm-hmm. But they would argue that the other Jordans would just try to each take over the game, which could lead to some bad things as well. So I don't really know what the answer is, but I just thought it was sort of a weird, funny debate. And I was like, on one hand, I feel like the LeBrons would win. The 5 LeBrons. Like maybe one-on-one.
All I know is that I would pay $49.95 on pay-per-view to see that one. Yes. I would absolutely love to see that.
Because I don't know how else we would do that. How that would ever happen.
But it would be amazing to watch that. That would be incredible. And I don't know how, haven't seen them both in their prime. I mean, the one thing I loved about Michael Jordan is a killer instinct. Just absolute killer, stone cold killer. And I don't think LeBron is a stone cold killer. I think that's the biggest difference between the two.
I think so. Jordan seemed just more and again, whether it was the Boston game last year, a couple years ago with LeBron, or the sick game this year, whether or not he was sick or not, Richard Jefferson said he was. Like, I don't recall Jordan ever having just a really bad playoff game where it seemed like he sort of disappeared.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he didn't have off nights, but I feel like he was still engaged 100% the entire time. I've often also wondered too, because Jordan seemed to have come at the exact perfect moment. He's played enough where you can go watch amazing clips of Jordan on YouTube. Mm-hmm. But he played before Twitter. He played a little bit before sports just became this. I know there was probably 24-hour coverage, but I don't know if it was like 7 different networks and 50 different websites and just constant coverage. So he sort of got to come in this sort of he got to come when you can see everything he did, but we didn't see everything he did.
Right.
Like, it's sort of been filtered out. Like, I know you got books like The Jordan Rules that sort of talk about, some of his behind-the-scenes stuff and some of the problems he did have here and there. And then, obviously, there was the weird 2 years in baseball and whatever that was about.
Yeah.
But I don't know if another athlete's ever going to get to be in that spotlight where he was the best, where he got the coverage but didn't have to take quite the scrutiny that I think a LeBron gets.
I think that's fair. And I think it was also, I don't remember people comparing Michael Jordan to somebody all the time. I mean, Michael Jordan's unique when he came along. I think LeBron's unique.
LeBron's very unique.
He's getting compared to Michael Jordan, and I don't think that's fair to either one.
Because, again, you can argue, too, they're not the same position.
No, they're not. Very much different.
Right. And, even LeBron to Magic, like, they don't play that, like, they're not the same player. So, it's hard to compare them.
LeBron could play 1, 2, 3, or 4, probably even 5 if he wanted to.
I think in modern NBA, for sure, he could play the 5.
And Jordan is a 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
But I know he would go in and compete at the 5 if he had to.
Jordan would compete with anybody, yeah.
Right. All right, so we don't have a recent food, but we have a future food moment.
We have future food. I'm going to Minneapolis this week for some consulting with the Timberwolves. And I found a restaurant called Revival. And it's a southern restaurant in Minneapolis, which always scares me. Mm-hmm. Because, Popeyes had a restaurant called Copeland's, which was a really good restaurant. And I went to Minneapolis and ate there. I'd eaten there in New Orleans, and I went to Minneapolis and said, "No, we tone it down for the people of Minneapolis."
Right.
But Revival comes right out and says, we didn't tone it down. We're Southern food for Southern people. So I'm looking at the menu here. I'm looking at sides like Carolina gold rice and butter. I don't even know what that is, but I'm going to order it.
That's very Southern.
Biscuits and sorghum butter, and then your chicken, you can get a variety of ways. You can get your chicken poultrygeist, whatever that is, Southern fried or Tennessee hot. So
I like a good Tennessee hot chicken myself.
I'm going to see if I can get some kind of combination so I could try 3 different styles. I have no idea what poultrygeist is, but
it's a really bad horror movie. I've actually seen it.
It is.
But
so I'm going to see what it is so I could definitely check that out and see what's there as I go to this restaurant up in Minneapolis. I get some interesting appetizers. Chicken fried steak and eggs.
It's a classic. When done right.
White gravy mashed potatoes. So it's going to be an interesting night. So I'm going to go there either on Wednesday or on Friday night. And I will give a report after I come back.
Very exciting. Once again, we appreciate all our new subscribers on iTunes. And if you like the show, please pass it on. Please get other people to subscribe. We are still seeking more support on Patreon. It helps us keep the lights on and allows us to make improvements to the show. So go to Sutton Impact Family Style on Patreon, and if you can contribute, please do. Come join our family. We'd appreciate it. And until next week, I'm Jason Sutton.
I'm Bill Sutton. Thanks for your support.